Self-compassion is the opposite of pride. Let's define my terms right away. So I mean pride in the overinflated ego kind of way, not in the healthy, I respect myself and I'm happy with who I am kind of way. And I mean self-compassion not in the self-indulgent, self-pitying kind of way, but in the treating yourself as a good friend or family member would way. I had an epiphany yesterday, and lots of times what epiphanies are just the collection of a bunch of different thoughts that you've had a million times before and you've been told a million times before, but all of a sudden it comes together in one little bite-sized chunk that you can finally look at all at once. You knew the pieces before and you knew even the conclusion before, but something about it all being packed together in one little sentence makes it feel revelatory. That's what the title of this video was for me yesterday. Today it feels a little less exciting, like most epiphanies. A day later they just get a little stale and you're like, oh well yeah, but even so, there's truth in it. So let me unpack it. There's this idea that I still sometimes find myself believing that looking after myself or listening to my own desires is prideful and selfish and wrong. I had an off morning yesterday. It was a combination of stressors and my sleep schedule and who knows what else. But I found myself so frustrated that I wasn't feeling motivated and that I was just sitting on the couch and I was so irritated at myself. I was angry at myself for not being a better person who could work through being frustrated and tired and overwhelmed. Finally, I forced myself to stop and slow down and just think about what was bothering me. And what I found was that I wasn't being humble enough to admit that I needed a break. I wasn't being compassionate enough toward myself to even look at the things that were frustrating me and causing me to not want to do things. And once I finally gently looked at what was bothering me, I was able to get on with things and do what needed to be done, and I had a much better attitude about it. There's this really great blog that my friend Tom sent me a while back that talks about winning the trust of your mob. The demands that our self puts on ourself can be overwhelming. There's so many desires and I want to do this and I don't want to do that and I'm tired and I want to rest for a week and I'm bored and I'm frustrated so I'm not going to do this. It can feel completely unruly and unachievable to appease your desires ever. And so you try to shut them down or tune them out, but all that does is make those voices louder and louder until you snap and either completely deny yourself and get angry at yourself and shut down all of your desires, or more likely you completely give in to something and do something that feels good in the moment but ultimately you regret. The key seems to be figuring out what part of your desires is healthy and what part of your desires is just overcorrecting into self-indulgence. So how this ties back to the mob is there's this scene in It's a Wonderful Life where George Bailey is running his, savings and loan, and everyone makes a run on him and wants their money back. And instead of getting angry and saying, this is unreasonable, you can't ask me to give you everything, he compassionately says, well, I guess I can give you all your money back, ma'am. And then the next person, realizing that he had compassion and wants to help them out, says, well, I can get by on just this much. And the next person was like, well, I just can get by on this much. So winning the trust of your mob, your insane sometimes desires in your head and your body, is just saying, okay, I'm on your side. I want to help you out. I can give you this thing. Is that enough? And that can win the trust of the mob so that it can get by on just a little bit and then you can move on. So I'm trying to learn how to be a good leader to my mob, a good leader that gives what is healthy and kindly turns down what is not healthy and puts to death the sin, the evil, because that's what's best for the mob. That's what's best for me. I'd known all these things, but what hit me on Wednesday is that it's pride to act as if you don't have a mob. It's pride to try to function as if you don't have desires and limits and needs. Self-compassion is kindness towards oneself that leads to wholeness, which in turn helps you function better and be a healthier, kinder person toward everyone else. Pride just leads to self-denial, which may seem like a virtue at first glance, but eventually it just ends up stoking your ego. Let me know what you think of this. How do you handle your mob? I'll leave a link to the article my friend Tom shared with me in the description. You should definitely read it. It has a lot to do about productivity. It's great. You matter. God loves you. I'll see you next week.